بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا مولانا محمد خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. Inshallah, Idrees, we will be starting today, even though the book will not start officially today, but we will be beginning our discourses of Seerat-e-Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I just wanted to introduce today a couple of things before we start the actual book. One is the author, the Musannif himself, and the maqsad and the reason why we need to understand and we need to learn about the Seerat of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the book that we will be following, obviously it will be very difficult to do everything from that particular book because it's a very lengthy book, but we'll inshallah try our best that we are able to cover as many aspects as possible in these discourses, and they will be episodic wise, inshallah. Obviously won't be on a daily basis, but inshallah a few days a week. The discourses will be coming on YouTube and on social media, so try taking benefit. The book that we are using is Hazrat maulana Muhammad Idrees Kandhalwi rahmatullahi alayhi's book of Seerat-e-Mustafa. It's a very, very inspirational kitab, a very, very auspicious kitab, a very esteemed book. It covers everything in this kitab from Seerah perspective, and he uses a lot of narrations. That's one of the unique things about this kitab is he brings hadith and the verses of the Quran to bring everything together. So it could be useful for people who are just the beginners of seeking knowledge or advanced students of seeking knowledge, and for a person who's just a layman, someone who just wants to learn, an ordinary individual, it will definitely benefit them as well. We need to understand why it is important to learn Seerah. I, for one, personally, as a humble, speaker, I am not anyone capable of anything. These akabir, these mashayikh, or mashallah, Allah Ta'ala blessed them with so much ilm, and not only ilm, but they had a great deal of amal onto that ilm as well. Therefore Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took a great work from them. So it's a great inspiration for me personally that I'm honored and I'm privileged to be producing discourses through this kitab. Verily, if these mashayikh wouldn't have played their part, verily these mashayikh wouldn't have given sacrifices, we wouldn't see the deen that we see today. Especially the ulama of Deoband, all of them, whether before partition or after partition of India and Pakistan and Bangladesh or whatever, all the ulama of Deoband, and especially Deoband, the circle, has put in a great effort in preserving the deen. And we, as the Deobandi circle, and the Deobandi manhaj, and the Deobandi Ahl Sunnah wal Jamaat sect is so unique than everyone else, that we have not only upheld one aspect of the deen, but everything, from a perspective of fiqh, of ahnaf, from a perspective of qiraat, from a perspective of seerah, from a perspective of hadith, from a perspective of everything that we see today. Ulama Deoband are at the forefront of it. And indeed, we should be grateful to our mashayikh, and we should be making dua to them. Indeed, this kitab was given to us, me when I was a student in Jamia Ulum al-Islamiyya, Allama Muhammad Yusuf Banori Town, Karachi. Indeed, this was a kitab which was more of a muta'ala kitab. So obviously, alhamdulillah, I was blessed, and I'm really, really, really grateful to my asatiza and to my idara that they enforced that onto us, and they gave us this opportunity to seek benefit from this kitab. Indeed, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't know the gems and the jewels that exist in this kitab. And the benefit that I personally see that everyone should be able to get is in this kitab. I personally find it very, 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 very jami and mani in every sense, but also gives you a very, very detailed understanding of things in terms of seerah. So we will begin with Hazrat Maulana Idrees Kandhalwi's Muqaddamah. I'm not going to go through the whole Muqaddamah. He wrote, mashallah, a lot of things. I'm just going to very briefly concise it. As I said, I'm a very humble speaker. I do not know much, and I consider myself extremely weak and feeble. So therefore, he mentions that him as a weak slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, kana Allah lahu wa kana huwa Allah al-Islam. Meaning that he's basically calling himself as a humble slave of the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as he has made himself dedicated and waqf for this work. And he's saying, and he's presenting his case, and he's saying that, look, O believers, O Muslims, it is not important for you to know about yourself. It is incumbent upon you to know your beloved Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. It is extremely important. We understand this, that, today's day and age of information, of social media, we know about everyone and anyone. Even the guy on the street, some Tom, Dick and Harry, we know a lot more about them. But the sad thing to say, unfortunate reality is that even sometimes, me personally as well, I'll pass a part of the category as well, that we may not know anything about our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yes, we may call ourselves students of knowledge. We may call ourselves, ulama, right? But really, one should really think about it and ponder about himself, that did I really do any kind of sacrifices? Did I do really any kind of serious work towards that, to give myself that kind of a title, student of knowledge, when I don't even know first thing about my Nabi, what he was like, how he dressed, how he was, his smile, nothing, absolutely nothing. But we may know about some layman celebrity. Oh, they eat this kind of ice cream, they promote this kind of product or whatever, like XYZ things. And our Nabi, who in turn changed the entire world with his arrival, and we follow his deen, or we claim to follow the deen of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We call ourselves Ummat Muhammadiyya sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but yet we may not know the first thing about our Nabi. So it's unfortunate, sad reality. And I, for one, feel that we should definitely emphasize on that. So I'm coming back to the point that Hazrat Maulana Idrees Kandhalwi rahmatullahi alayhi mentions, that it is extremely important for you to know your Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? Because if one was not to know the Nabi, how is he going to understand his deen? How is he going to understand the commandments that were sent to him, right? So it is of high importance that everyone who is follower of Islam and Deen Islam must at least bare minimum know the Seerat of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And one thing I just came across just yesterday in a masjid here in Ottawa, that there was a very small child, mashallah, of someone, and he knew the entire Seerah of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I was mesmerized. I was shocked. I was like, a child of this age, like very small, like maybe 6-7 years of age, and he knew the entire Seerah, the battles, and how many people were there, how many people made the hijrah, whatever. We may not know. Even me as an alim, I may not know a lot of things, right? I may be scratching my head and I will be saying, I'll take a look at it and let you know if someone was to ask me right off the street, right off the bat. So it's unfortunate. But khair, he mentions, the Muslim rahmatullah alayhi mentions, An-Nabi awla bil mu'minina min anfusihim. This is the verse of the Quran of Surah Al-Ahzab, ayat number 6, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the believers should get to know his Nabi. It is awla for the believers than getting to know themselves. Now let's understand this point, why the Musannif mentioned this here. Basically, if you think about it this way, that if one was to look at oneself in a mirror, right? There will be two things. One will be the actual zat of that person. The person will be standing in body, and the reflection that he'll see in the mirror. And now, obviously, that reflection is part of that individual. However, it's not the asal, right? The moment that person moves away from the mirror, the reflection is gone, right? So similarly, the iman of a believer is the reflection of nubuwwat, right? And and the nubuwwat is the asal for it, right? So we need to connect ourselves to the Seerat of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and to the Nabawi zindagi and the Nabawi lifestyle in order for us to really appreciate iman, to really understand this iman, right? So this is more of an actual thing that is a necessity, sort of, that we need to understand our Nabi's zindagi and his way of life, complete way of life, and the incidents that took place, the events that happened. Because a lot of times we get questioned and we get, sometimes confused about ayat, about ahkamat, about ahadith. We will hear something because we don't know the pas manzar. We may not know the background behind it as to what happened, why did this happen. Sometimes some people, unfortunately, there are forces, there are individuals who would distort the history and historical events, would use it for personal gains. And their whole maqsad is either to make a buck or to really create a wedge amongst ummah of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they'll use this. So we need to be very, very strong so that we have complete itminan and we have complete satisfaction in our heart that even if someone comes and tries to shake us, we're not shaken by that. We don't fall for this, we don't get victimized by these people and we start doubting our own deen, our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is very, very important that I am trying to make everybody understand, whoever is listening. And then Musannif rahmatullah alayhi, he mentions that just like for a believer, iman is a necessity, the Nabi's seerah is also a necessity, right? Therefore, he will not be able to do da'wah, he will not be able to do any good deed work without the knowing of the seerah of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Think about it this way, right? There's a coach of a football team, whatever sport you want to pick up, and realistically, the coach will tell you and train you in every possible way, right? And the whole intention behind it is that the fact that you are that particular player who excel, right? But without coach's instructions, without fully grasping his teachings, you will not be able to understand anything, and you will not be able to excel in whatever sport or whatever thing you're doing. So similarly, we need to understand Nabi's way of life, Nabi's deen. And for that, first step is to get to know the Nabi's life in order to appreciate his deen. And then furthermore, Musannif rahmatullah alayhi also brings, like I said, he's going to bring a lot of ayat, he's going to bring a lot of hadith as well to prove his point, right? And he mentions this mentions Surah Al-Hud, right? كُلُّ نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ مِنْ أَنْبَاءِ رُسُلٍ مَا نُثَبِّتُ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ وَجَاءَكَ فِي هَذِهِ الْحَقُّ وَمَوْعِظَةٌ وَذِكْرَى لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that we have revealed the Quran. If you look at the Quran, if you do the detailed muta'ala of Quran is divided into a few things. Tawheed, Risalat, Ba'ath Ba'd al-Maut, right? Al-Ahkamat, Anbiya, and the Qissas of Anbiya alayhi salatu wassalam. Right? So why, we see that a significant amount is the stories of the previous Anbiya and their nations, right? And why was this given? Like, what was the maqsad behind it, right? I really like one thing that was mentioned in Nur al-Anwar in the Bab of Qiyas, that I personally always took benefit from this. And I feel like every listener should really ponder about this particular point that Hazrat Mullah Jivan rahmatullah alayhi made in that kitab. In the Bab of Qiyas, in the very, very beginning, he says, فَاعْتُبِرُوا يَا أُولِي الْأَبْصَارِ. Right? Realistically, in Qiyas, usually we think about ijtihad and ahkamat. But he mentions one very, very good point, and I feel like that's a very, very important point. He mentions that particular, if you were to think about فَاعْتُبِرُوا يَا أُولِي الْأَبْصَارِ, Allah Ta'ala is mentioning this, and we are using this to make qiyas on ahkamat as well. But it also, the funny thing is we have to make qiyas on the previous nations as well. Because the condition that they went through, the things that they did, if we were to look away from those things, then we will make the same mistakes. So similarly, this, just like it is important for us to do ijtihad and ponder upon these points of ahkamat, it is extremely vital and important for us to ponder upon the conditions of the previous nations and the mistakes that they made and how they treated their Anbiya. How they did not take it seriously, the commandments of their Anbiya, their previous scriptures, and the result was that they vanished. Most of the ummahs got vanished, and the people who survived, the Jews and the Christians, or people of the book, right? They themselves, if you think about it, he's going to bring that point as well in the next page, that these people would not know what the Shariat is like. How they did not preserve anything. Even the books that they have nowadays are not the actual scriptures. that were there in the original language, right? So that's very important, that we need to ponder upon these points. And why was it given to us? And why were these stories were revealed? Two things. One is to give you the courage to seek forth in deen, to move forward in deen, right? To be steadfast on this path. Look, halat will come upon you. There is no excuse, and there is no other way of telling you. But the fact remains that these halat have come upon the previous nations, upon Sahabas and Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, so it will come upon you as well. Number one. Two is to give you the contentment and tranquility in your heart, to make sure that you follow your deen with complete steadfastness and with complete itminan sukoon, that you are not following anything else. You are following haqq. So you are on the haqq, and whatever you're following has a long chain from Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Sahaba, and the latter generations. So therefore, you should have full contentment that you are on the haqq, and therefore you should not feel that this peer pressure and the changing conditions affect you and affect your iman. That is very important. And then when we look at Quran, we also find that many the surahs are named after the prophets, like Surah Ibrahim, Surah Yusuf, Surah Yunus, Surah Hud. And then similarly, there are certain surahs as well that are not named after prophet, but after also some of the pious predecessors or people who were pious in their day and age, like Surah Luqman and Surah Kahf. Ashabul Kahf were pious young men who wanted to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they ran away and took refuge in a cave. Obviously the story is very wrong, and that's not the maqsad. But the other thing, and there's another point in this, that both Surah Luqman and Surah Kahf, even though they mentioned about pious predecessors, it is of vital importance to also get to know your akabir and your mashayikh and the pious predecessors of all generations, from Sahaba all the way down till today. Whoever is alive, alhamdulillah, take benefit if you can. And if those who have passed away, read their material, read their life stories, read their malfuzat if you get an opportunity. It's extremely important to get to know your ulama. A lot of times we feel like we don't need these people. Billah, if we were to do this, believe me, we'll end up just like the people of the book. That they also did the same thing, and guess what? They turned away from the thing completely. Look where they are now, right? And one also needs to understand that this seerah is, part of, the entire deen. In deen, if you were to take a mutala of hadith, right, and if you were to look at it from a perspective that, hadith is of many types. You get fazail, you get ahkamat, you get adab, you get aqaid, then you get fitan as well, right? So seerah is also part of it as well. So in this kitab particularly, this seerah portion is going to be covered in this kitab. So again, like I said, I'm not going to go into too many details of this muqaddamah. It's pretty long and we don't have time, but I just wanted to give a gist of it and wanted to give you the maqsad behind it, and just so that everybody can take benefit as to why we are doing this, why discourses are there for you to take benefit, to listen to it and feel good about your Nabi. And when you listen to this, it makes your heart softer and makes you inclined towards more ahkamat, and you really want to make amal into your own life, bring practical change in your life. I personally I know this because back in the days when I wasn't too religious, the sohbat and the stories of the previous predecessors changed my life, and that became an inspiration that I want to learn deen. So lots of times that's what we need. Two things are very, very important. One is your sohbat, who you hang out with, starting from the family members, the wife, if you're married, and friends especially friends. Who you hang out with, he's going to have a lot of asar in your life, right? So that's one thing important, that we have pious company at all times, or at least we try to foster from our side pious company as much as we can. We try to implement as much deen as we can, whatever is in our power, we do that. Number two, we always connect ourselves to deen, and for number one thing is that we start off by listening to the stories of the pious predecessors, our Sahabas, and obviously Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, right? That's extremely important. As far as the Musannif Rahmatullah Ali is concerned, obviously, it is of vital importance that we understand Musannif's background, his, we should have some sort of information about who the Musannif was, right? Where did he come from? Who were his parents? All these things, his lineage and all that. Where was he from and everything, right? So his full name is Muhammad Idrees ibn Muhammad Ismail Siddiqui Kandhalwi Rahmatullahi alayh. He was born on 20th of August 1899, which is approximately 12th Rabiul Thani, 1317 Hijrah. And he was a Deobandi scholar, right? He was from the Deobandi scholar. He was known for his work in tafsir and hadith. Maulana Idrees Kandhalwi Rahmatullah alayh, after his birth, his father's name was Maulana Muhammad Ismail Kandhalwi Rahmatullah alayh. He was originally from the state of Bhopal, a state in India, still I think exists. And obviously his father was a very, very pious person, and not only just pious person, but he was also a great sheikh of his time. And he was the murid of Haji Imdadullah Muhajir Makki Rahmatullahi alayh. So obviously you can tell the spirituality that was there. Him being himself, being an alim, and obviously being the disciple of Hazrat Haji Imdadullah Muhajir Makki Rahmatullah alayh, must be of that of magnitude, that the impact that he may have in his life is amazing. And he was basically working for the forestry department at that time in the state of Bhopal. He basically resigned. His father, Maulana Idrees, his father, Maulana Muhammad Ismail Kandhalwi Rahmatullah alayh, resigned from that position. He started teaching in Jamia Masjid Kandala. And obviously Maulana Idrees Kandhalwi Rahmatullah alayh grew up in a religious environment. And we need to understand their religious environment was not like our religious environment today. It was very, very religious environment. So even the women were very, very, pious. And they were memorized the Quran. Like, it's a famous story of Hazrat Shaykh Rahmatullah alayh, that his mother, when she would feed him, when he was a baby, like a very small baby, and she would recite Quran. Hazrat Shaykh's family was known for that they would recite Quran so frequently. So the women would be doing house chores and they'll be reciting Quran. So again, I mean, today's day and age, these things are so very rare that some women will be cooking and they'll be cooking, without criticizing anyone else, and they'll be reciting Quran. That's like very rare you'll find. So he grew up in that family, a religious household. It's an inspiration for all of us. These Musannif stories and the whole maqsad behind it and the whole intention behind it is the fact that we just don't read them for ma'lumat. Today everything is about information. We just want to get information, that's it. So I can look like an academia. That's not what it is. We listen to these things and we put them into our practice. That, what can I do within my bisat? How do I have in my reach that I can do and I can take benefit from? And always start from yourself. Don't go out there and start telling your kids, your wife, everyone else, your friends and your parents and everyone else. You start with yourself. Always reflect on everything and start with what I can do, what I should be doing, how I act, how I am throughout the day. And then slowly, inshallah, once you yourself are steadfast, then inshallah you can tell others. But before you do that, you listen to something inspirational, boom, you start telling people. Great, you should tell people, but once you should have the niyat, and utmost niyat of, I'm going to make amal first. I'm going to make practice upon this and these things. So it's extremely important. And then, so he basically memorized Quran at a very early age with his father at the age of 9. And once Hazrat Maulana Idrees Kandhalwi Rahmatullah memorized the Quran, his father entrusted him with none other than Hazrat Maulana Ashraf Ali Thanvi Rahmatullahi alayhi, and he was enrolled in his madrasa and his khanqa as well. So now again, like I said, his father was the disciple of who? Haji Imdadullah Muhajir Makki Rahmatullahi alayhi, and he was entrusted to whom? Hazrat Maulana Ashraf Ali Thanvi Rahmatullahi alayhi. What a pious company that he is getting, right? And the pious silsila that he is becoming part of. He completed his primary education Dars Nizami in Thana Bhawan and the madrasa of Hazrat Thanvi Rahmatullahi alayhi at that time. And he was also trained under Hazrat Maulana Abdullah Gangohi Rahmatullahi alayhi. And obviously the madrasa Ashrafiyah of Hazrat Maulana Thalwi Rahmatullah in Thana Bhawan only had arrangement for primary curriculum academics of Dars-e Nizami. So he went for further education in Mazahir Uloom Saharanpur for further training in Islamic sciences. Obviously, Saharanpur is also a blessed idara, right? He took basically, he was basically, now he basically became the student of Hazrat Maulana Khalil Ahmad Saharanpuri Rahmatullah Ali, obviously a very auspicious and very esteemed scholar of Saharanpur, and he learned from them. And his other teachers included Hazrat Maulana Sabit Ali, Hazrat Maulana Abdul Latif, and Hazrat Maulana Zafar Ahmad Usmani Rahmatullah Ali. Once he completed his Dawrah Hadith from there, he got the Sanad and Ijazah at the age of 19. Then after that, he went to Darul Uloom Deoband, and obviously he completed Dawrah Hadith over there for the second time, Darul Uloom Deoband. That is called Nisbat, that we want the Nisbat, and that's what we should be striving for. And obviously he learned from the great scholars of Deoband, the Hazrat Maulana al-Mashaq Kashmiri Rahmatullah Ali, Allama Shamir Ahmad Usmani Rahmatullah Ali, Mufti Aziz Rahman Usmani, Hazrat Maulana Ahmad Nanotwi Rahmatullah Ali, Hazrat Maulana Habibur Rahman Usmani, and Sayyid Azhar Hussain Shah Rahmatullah Ali, like giant scholars of Darul Uloom Deoband. He had classmates, obviously, like I said, Khairul Qurun's work time in that sense. Obviously, his fellow students were Hazrat Mufti Shafi Rahmatullah Ali, the great Mufti Azam Pakistan, the father of Hazrat Mufti Taqi Usmani and Mufti Rafi Usmani Sahib, and Qari Muhammad Tayyib Sahib, the grandson of Hazrat Maulana Qasim Nanotwi Rahmatullah Ali. So again, company, the companionship. Look at the companionship that he got as well, as friends, as colleagues, and fellow studentship. He gets from none other than the two giants of their time. He was also if you look at his nisbat comes from the ancestry, from his father's side and from his mother's side. They trace back to Abu Bakr Siddiq from his father's side, and from his mother's side it traces back to Umar ibn Khattab radiyallahu anhu. That's why he used to call himself a Siddiqi al-Faruqi in his lineage. He was a Hanafi mazhab scholar, and in terms of tariqah, tasawwuf, he basically followed the Chishti, and he was also a Naqshbandi from that perspective as well. And he was a Mujaddid in that regard as well. In terms of his career after he became Farigh, obviously is a great history that where did he serve. So from 1921 to 1922, he served at Madrasa Aminiya, Delhi. Then from 1922 to 1929, he served Darul Uloom Deoband. And then from 1929 to 1939, he served at Hyderabad State. Then from 1939 to 1949, again at Darul Uloom Deoband, he was given the position of Sheikh al-Tafsir. And then from 1949 to 1951, he came and he served at Jamia Abbasiya Bhavalpur, and he was given the Sheikh al-Jamia position. And the last, the madrasa that he served from 1951 to 1974 till he died was Jamia Ashrafia Lahore. He was a Sheikh al-Hadith wa Tafsir over there. In Madrasa Ashraf Aminiya, he basically, after completing education in 1921, he was appointed there, and he got the teaching position. Then this was a time of Mufti Kifayat al-Dehlvi Rahmatullahi Ali, and the madrasa was under his leadership, obviously. But after only 1 year, he was invited, Maulana Muhammad Ahmad Nanotwi Rahmatullahi Ali of Darul Uloom Deoband and Maulana Habibur Rahman Usmani, the Muhtamim and the Naib Muhtamim, both invited him over to come to Darul Uloom Deoband. Now this is the first batch at the time. He basically started teaching in 1922 in Darul Uloom Deoband, and he was not assigned elementary books. Instead, he was given Hidayat Awwalain in Hanafi Fiqh and Maqamat al-Hariri in Arabic literature. Later on, he was also given in the same Darul Uloom Deoband from his time from 1922 to 1929. He was given Mishkat al-Masabih, and Tafsir Jalalain was also his responsibility. He remained in Darul Uloom Deoband for 9 years, and during the time he would also deliver Quran Dars, Tafsir Dars after Fajr Namaz as well in Madrasa Nawdara building. And then he went to Hyderabad State. Now there was a disagreement at the time among some of the scholars, and Maulana Ahmad Kashmir Rahmatullah Ali and Maulana Shabir Ahmad Usmani, they parted their ways with Darul Uloom Deoband at the time. Whatever the case may be, they left. So he left as well, because he had love for these mashayikh, and he was serving in Hyderabad, where he remained again for 9 years, and he taught there various work. And during that time over there, he started writing this kitab. He started work, the Shara of Mishkat-e-Masabih, التعليق الصبيح التعليق الصبيح. It was an Arabic commentary. It is on several volumes. I think it's about 4 volumes or something. And it's a Shara of Mishkat. And he used to take benefit of the Hyderabad State Madrasa a great deal, and took benefit of the kitabs that he and then he wrote his, basically the Shara that he completed over there. Then obviously he was invited again from, as I mentioned, in 1936, 1937, he was invited twice at other madaris as well, like the Madrasa Islamia Arabiya in Tabil, where Maulana Shah Kashmiri and Maulana Shabir Ahmad Usmani, they moved over there, and he basically did not come back. But he was invited in 1939 and became the Sheikh al-Tafsir of Darul Deoband, and then he returned as Sadr Mudarris and he basically he taught there, and he taught many hadith kitabs as well. He was interested at that time with hadith kitabs, so he was teaching Tafsir ibn Kathir, Tafsir al-Bayzawi, and the Dawra kitabs were also given, and then Sunan Abi Dawud, Tahawi, and he also taught the Tafsir Jalalain as well in the Deoband in the second time as well. Then he moved after independence in 1947 of India and Pakistan. Hazrat Maulana Shabir Ahmad Usmani, he moved over there. Therefore, he invited him over to come. So he left India in 1949 and he started teaching in Bahawalpur Madrasa, and which was he was given many invitations from many parts of, because back in the days there was in East Pakistan, there was West Pakistan. East Pakistan got in 1971, got independence again and became Bangladesh. So basically he was invited over there as well, but he didn't go because he was very inclined towards Maulana Shabir Ahmad Usmani. So he basically started serving there, and he was teaching, the Sahih Bukhari and Tafsir al-Bayzawi over there. And then finally his journey took him to Jamia Ashrafiya Lahore, where he basically served till the end of his life, and he established that madrasa, and upon the request of Mufti Mahmud Hassan rahmatullahi alayhi, and who was the founder of this madrasa, and he basically called him and made him a Shaykh al-Hadith and Shaykh al-Tafsir. So he was reading Sahih al-Bukhari, Jami Tirmidhi, and Tafsir al-Bayzawi as well over there. He served there until the end of his life. He died on the 7th of Rajab 1394 Hijri, which is exactly 28th of July 1974, and he's buried there. So this was the little bit of introduction of Musannif rahmatullah alayhi. I highly recommend, if someone gets their hands on the Musannif's life, or there was many Musannifs of our Akabir especially. It's really inspirational stories of their lives, are very inspirational. We must take benefit of their lives and take lessons of how they disciplined themselves and how they were able to accomplish what they accomplished, and the taqwa and the zuhud that they went through. That's something that's very important. A lot of times in today's day and age, it's one lesson that I also learned, that we look at the time of the ulama when they were prosperous, when they got the ni'mas of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we forget to look at their past, how they started out their lives, how difficult it was to start off anything for them, right? The struggles that they went through, especially this time is the time of India, the time of British, where they were going through persecution, and Darul Deoband was facing challenges after challenges, and these ulama were going through challenges after challenges. They were not, in their regular lifestyle, right? So we need to take benefit and seek benefit from their lives. And if we are fortunate to live in one of the Western countries, we should take benefit of this time and excel and do dini khidmat with full sincerity, and make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for these blessed individuals, right? We should not forget them in our duas. At least bare minimum we should be making duas for all our akabir, everybody, whether we have studied under them or not, whether they were all our teachers. You need to understand, if Darul Deoband did not exist, we would not exist, plain and simple, right? If Sahaba were not to be part of this chain, we would not see the deen. So everybody, whether we have understood, we sometimes have inclinations towards who we have studied directly under, but we forget their teachers, or their teachers and their teachers, right? Or the akabir in general. We tend to think that that's it. Yes, definitely you should have extreme love for your own particular teachers, but one should also understand that we should pay regard and pay tribute and and consider them in high regard all the time, our akabir and mashayikh, their lifestyles, right? So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this was just a brief introduction. The kitab I mentioned a little bit, the muqaddimah basically, and I mentioned the brief introduction of the musannif rahmatullahi alayhi. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us that we begin this kitab and enable me to say what is haqq and protect me from any kind of batil that comes out of my mouth, and protect everybody, whoever is listening to this discourses, inshallah. We'll try our best to put on a daily basis. Obviously, it won't be on an every day. It might be, I haven't made up a tartib yet as to will it be Monday to Thursday and we'll have 3 days off, or if it will be 3 days a week. I'm not sure how much can I do, but inshallah, whatever Allah Ta'ala enables me, my thing is that I try my best to come up with these discourses, and inshallah we'll try to upload them on YouTube so people can take benefit, inshallah. Subhanallahi wa bihamdihi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.